I think for many people, it's a kind of bewildering picture because there is not a day when you can't pick up a newspaper and find an article that tells you about some new corporate commitment, some new national initiative, some new technology which might help us, and then the next day you open the newspapers and it's Australian bushfires and it's Donald Trump, and it's really hard to kind of see where this is overall, whether you should hope. I'm kind of interested in where you think it's poised and what will determine whether or not globally we do the things that we need to do. I'll start with you, Jonathan.
The big thing for me, what's happened in change in the last year is there was received wisdom, which is if you hit people with the reality of it, it's too big. People will get scared, they'll disengage, they'll be apathetic, so we can't do anything about it. And along came Extinction Rebellion and the school strikers and Greta and said, the planet's burning, what are you going to do? And that just changed the whole debate, I think. Now it is this massive, massive thing, and now I think Extinction Rebellion, one of their articles of faith is to tell the truth, their first demand. And we are telling the truth about it, and I am really worried. I want to give hope, and I believe that what people need more than anything right now is hope and a vision. But the scale of transformation that is going to be needed in order to do what we need to do to stop cataclysmic climate events is huge. And when we came up with this manifesto for this election, we were talking about borrowing £100 billion a year for 10 years to have this huge shift. And we were making the links, which I think is really important in people's minds, about why we need to radically transform the welfare state to provide the security for people as we make this transition. Because if we're going to make these huge changes, you're going to have to make sure that people are secure. And therefore, we need to reform and reimagine the welfare state as an empowering tool. We have to get away from this blind addiction to credit-fueled growth. We have to tackle the fact that the economy is now 3 times bigger. We have 3 times more wealth than when I was born. We have the wealth. The alternative to just going on growing and growing and growing is to redistribute that wealth. Now, you can call it left wing, but that is what we have to do, if we're going to make the change. And we feel like we're telling the truth. And there's a bigger stake. We can have all the electoral success we like and compromise as much as you like. But if we don't avoid the climate catastrophe, then what's the bloody point in getting elected to a government if you aren't actually making the difference? So we feel we have to say it, and shifting the agenda for us in this country has been as important as getting the electoral success.
But it's interesting. I think it's very interesting because there's always been this debate, hasn't there? Do you focus on the harms? Do you focus on the despair, the panic, the fear? Or do you focus on the upside? Do you focus on, well, actually, no, a green economy would be a happier economy, the well-being would be better, technology can, be used to make real progress. It feels as though, partly because of Extinction Rebellion and the school children's action, that the emphasis, and also what's happening in the world, has moved more to the negative as a way of mobilizing people. And I notice that Donald Trump, who, whatever he is not stupid when it comes to understanding where to try to draw lines. The line he wanted to draw at Davos was about this. Yeah. He wanted to say, this isn't, forget all this. It's optimist versus pessimist. It's me, cheerful old Donald, versus that rather miserable woman, a girl from Sweden. Is there a danger that even though it may be in the short term that people are mobilized by fear, that's not enough? One of the things you said positively about your part of Germany is that it's been run by the Greens for 10 years and you've had strong economic growth.
And we're proud of it.
Well, I know.
No, but it depends on what kind of economic growth you have. And I firmly believe that, if we go on this apocalypse storytelling, we all should disappear. And living means emitting CO2. The only time we don't emit CO2 is if we're dead. So if you go it all the way to the radical, then you are life opposing. And we are firmly loving life and trying to make it a better life. And one of our oldest slogans of the Green Party in Germany is mit grünen Ideen schwarze Zahlen schreiben, which means taking green ideas and getting to black numbers at the end of the month, so to have economic success. So we have always been proposing a new definition of growth and making it more inclusive of environmental questions, but also social questions and caring, like care work, etc. And that has been so strong in our party that now we do, as German Greens, for the last 5 years, an alternative growth index for Germany. And it's become as publicly known and brought in the media as the German National Growth Index. Even though we're not in government, it's not, but we have done it with scientists, etc. And I feel like when I'm locally, in my Heidelberg constituency, and I'm telling people, look, imagine the city, we just take out the cars, we take that space for our kids, regain it, take the idea we could have energy, on our roofs and on our windows. We can just, live in a different place. It gives you so much more energy. And I really think that in the end, if you want to have that positive change, you have to go by ideas that are quick, easy to implement, and that are socially inclusive. And that's why, of course, you need money, you need funding for it. And I always say, what does it help me locally in Baden-Württemberg to stay there if I tell people not to use the car and I don't have a running train system? I don't want to cut on mobility. I've lived on 4 continents, I love traveling, and I want to be in touch with my friends in New York. And I want this, our system to get me to New York without producing CO2. It's not to get everybody to become better human beings, to stop being in touch. And I'm convinced that we can get there if we put in the resources, if we put the legal constraints necessary for that. And I think, that's what we've been doing in Baden-Württemberg. We have been investing a lot in these new technologies and new ways of running also transport, mobility systems, etc. And I think it's very worthwhile. And maybe on what you said, hope, one of my dearest quotes that I always have in my pockets, it's Václav Havel, who said, I try to make it in English. It's like hope is not the conviction that something ends well, but the firm belief that what you're doing is the right thing to do.